Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. If you have a question today, give us a call. We'll shuffle that question in for the mayor to answer. A little bit of stormy weather overnight there, but we kind of avoided the bad part of it again, it looks like.
You know, we did, and the good Lord gave us 30 hundredths of rain approximately, so that's always good. But wow, talk about a week of cool April weather coming up.
Yeah, looks like 50s all most of next week.
And wind.
I think, So, yeah. Always in Nebraska, wind.
It is.
If you're like us and you golf, you put up with it.
Well, if the way the last month has been, if you don't want to play in the wind, you weren't playing.
Yeah, you just keep the clubs in the coat closet and go do something else. Or
some days after I get done playing, I wonder why. Yeah. I didn't keep them in the coat closet. But.
Same here, Sometimes it doesn't go all that well out there on the course. So. I did not make the meeting, but it was more of an informational session than anything. You have next Monday the ordinance going into effect that will allow utility terrain vehicles on city streets other than U.S. Highway 77, and there would be on just a short stretch of 136, but it's mainly just residential areas. Don't know if there was a huge turnout, or very many questions. There's several ways to get answers to those as far as reading the ordinance.
Sure, there are. But, I think it was, fairly well attended. And I think, first of all, thank Tim Fralin. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was a great opportunity. I know that he was certainly for the ordinance. But, out of the three readings, he saw at least a need to help clarify some things with the UTVs, particularly when a number of people that were opposed to it weren't necessarily familiar with a UTV. Mm-hmm. I think it's always a great opportunity when you have a councilman out there willing to take some time out of his night and spend some time with that new ordinance with both people that may have not known what an UTV was, but also the handful that were there that could, understood the rules and regulations that are put in place.
You can, and I don't know if there's plans to do this, but after, say, the rest of this year, toward the end of December, you can always kind of review and see how things went.
Certainly we can. I mean, that could be a discussion item at one of the council meetings to review how things went, and we'll know by then. Mm-hmm. And it can probably be a little earlier in December. Probably not too many UTVs out in December.
Not unless you got an enclosed cab or something. I don't know. But, it'll be interesting to see just how the ordinance is used and how many are out there. It's really anybody's guess at this point.
It is. And, in a lot of respects, it's moving forward.
Yep.
So, and just as a sidebar, I guess I'll put a plug in for the Chamber Beatrice Leadership Group, which Councilman Esker and I met with yesterday, as they always do on leadership opportunities. But Tim Fralin, City Council Ward 1 representative, is a graduate of the Beatrice Leadership Group, and basically, because of his involvement in Beatrice Leadership Group, decided to run for City Council. And so it's nice to see, people in that group taking a lead into the city. Mm-hmm. And we hope that people continue to attend and take a strong look at becoming involved in the community as well. So, I think that's a great example of it working well. And having Tim on the City Council has definitely been a good experience and wealth of knowledge.
He's kind of the mindset that he likes to see people actually kind of be positive, come forward with an idea or something and talk it out rather than sometimes you meet people based on somebody's angry about something. In other words, something happened that got in somebody's grill or whatever, and then they came to the city council. But in this case, and in the case on the UTVs, it was really very, I guess, calm discussion and suggestion of ideas and things like that.
And thought out.
Yeah.
I mean, he thought through the process before he even brought it forward. So that was a good thing to see.
Yep. A lot of work still going on around 4th Street. The water line work had closed part of a street, I think, earlier this week. I mean, traffic could go through there, but there's people had to kind of watch out for crews because they're doing some digging there.
And we may see a closure a little bit more down 4th Street. I think some things were delayed a little bit there, and so you're gonna see off and on. I mean, on 4th Street, you're gonna see off and on traffic barriers. again, the group is doing a really nice job. They're being very communicative to the people that have businesses and use 4th Street. So we're very pleased with them. And but again, there's just going to be a few times that there's going to be disruptions as we replace those 100-year-old water lines. And just kind of as a sidebar, I was talking to the city administrator, Tobias, yesterday, and he said there are several places along that route that the water lines are buried 29 feet deep.
Wow.
So they're way down there.
It's a ways down.
And again, it's a nice thing we're boring,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're looking at digging a trench down 29 feet. And if you're going to dig a trench, you've got to make it wider and safer. If you're going to send somebody down there. So the boring process is really going to help us with that project. But I was surprised that, he let me know that's pretty deep to have a water line. But at least it won't freeze.
Too bad you can't find a treasure chest with a couple of million in it or something like that.
Exactly.
Various projects that are on the drawing board at one point or another. That I know, kind of an aside to the grant applications you're making for various projects. It'd be nice if something would rain down on you here.
It's exactly right. There's a lot of grants out there, and we continue to write and send and tap into it. If we can get grant money, it's always it's, I don't want to say it's free money because it comes from the federal government. We all pay our taxes, but at least we'd get some of our share.
Yeah. If I was the one doing the digging, it would be the Al Capone's vaults thing. Nothing would be inside if we did find it or something like that.
I hear you.
And, any word on when they'll actually switch to the Court Street part of that in between 4th and 10th? Is that upcoming pretty soon, or what's the status on that?
I don't know exact timeline. Interestingly, we're kind of studying the whole process now, and we're trying to figure out, do we go from 4th to 15th? Do we go from 15th to 4th? And it sounds like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you look at timing, what that may or may not do is it might be a little more palatable for the Chamber's Homestead Days Parade and those type of things. So we're trying to, again, think through the process every day of how we can make it a little smoother, because we know it's going to be disrupting. Disruptions are going to happen, especially when you, like I said, 29 feet deep. That's pretty deep.
Is the goal to get it all finished by the time late June runs around in Homestead Days? Because that's coming up pretty quickly.
No, it won't all be done.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to look at where's a good kind of stopping point for that weekend.
Okay, all right. We'll come back and talk a little bit about budgeting. The city and both the Board of Public Works uses a 2-year budget cycle now instead of a 1 year. We'll talk about that next on Ask the Mayor. On Ask the Mayor with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, a new 2-year budget will be coming up starting, I think, October 1st is your budget year for fiscal year. Years ago, you had annual budgeting, and now it's 2-year biennial budgeting, both for the city and Beatrice Board of Public Works. Does that tend to make you be maybe a little bit more conservative in that first year, knowing that you got to kind of plan out that long, or how does that generally work?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, one of the probably strengths that we have, and with the biennium budget, I think it also gives a little bit of flexibility, and we saw that in 2020 through 2022 with COVID and then the effects of COVID on the supply chain. And so with the 2-year budget, we may not have expended everything in 2021, and we know some of that, like for instance, a new truck for the electric company is going to come in 2022. So we're still at least in that same budget cycle. So it does give us some of that flexibility. But one of the strengths that we have is most of our department heads have been around for a while. And so if you look at your budgets, and the same way it was out at the college, a lot of that is not starting from scratch. Certainly you take a look at some areas that you may have budgeted money for that you don't need, and so you try to move those into an area of need. I know that there's a concerted effort to try to look at capital requests, which are bigger items. Trying to look at maybe even, and what are we going to get done in 2 years, but what does the 5 or 8 year outlook look like? And I think that's been the challenge that has come from the city administration is, certainly you don't have a crystal ball. and it's kind of a little bit like the streets, the 1 and 6 years. But let's kind of map out what the next 5 years might look like to see a couple of things. Number one, what are those projects going to be? What are they total? Number two, if indeed you have a project that saves money, can you move forward with something and knock that off your list early if necessary? So.
Here we are about 5-6 months before the actual 2-year period starts, but is it too early to start right now, or what goes on in the initial months with departments?
They've already started.
Yeah.
It is a, I would say, kind of bottom to top process. And so the department heads right now are working on their budgets and their capital. And then they go to Hannah as our head financial individual, and she's going to put the budget together. So they've started, and I think we'll probably see or take a look at that. I would say either July or August, and so no, it's not too soon, and they've already started.
And there's always the issue to look at as to what do you keep in reserve too for those times when you got things that come up that you don't anticipate, that types of things.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a savings account or emergency fund. I think we've been very prudent with our reserves over the last, at least 8 years that I was on the council. We continue to look at our reserves and make sure they're in what is kind of the recommended area. Certainly, you don't want to get your reserves so high that you're not doing projects.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to walk that fine line between you've got to have reserves, but you also need to spend money to get projects done.
There's been so much talk at the state level about how healthy budget projections are and how much revenue is due to come in the future. Yet at the same time, there have been times when there are downturns, and it will go the other way at some point. From a revenue standpoint in the city financially, as far as what you see from sales tax, what you receive off property tax or new development, are things pretty good right now?
Yeah, things are really good, steady. I wouldn't say that it's raining money.
Yeah.
But I think it's coming in pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think the other benefit that we have in our community is the fact that we have the BPW. And so, again, as I've always said, I kind of use the electric company as kind of our base point, and that's probably not fair to the other departments because they do a great job too. But we do have some revenue coming in there without having to raise rates. And even, I think we've been in Mars now for about 3 years. That's stabilized our garbage rates, and we've still been able to, have that as a revenue generator. So I think from a city perspective, we've got a number of things going for us that help us continue to make sure that we have the money we need to move forward and have money for unexpected items that pop up.
Seems like on the utility side, weather is a factor too, whether you're in a drought or whether it's really hot or it's really cold, and that affects what revenues or what sales you have in those departments too.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at least at our house, if you look at March, April, haven't really had to run the heat very much. And today, with the forecast, I made sure that
turn it back on.
I might have to turn that back on, but I made sure the air conditioner didn't want to come back on. So, I think we're kind of at a lull point as far as usage right now.
Yeah. Wanted to bring up just recently, and it's a multi-stage process on tax increment financing where developments go before the CRA and then to the planning and zoning, then to the council, and then back and forth. And finally, you've got a couple of them that just recently had development agreements approved at the final stage. One of them is triplex, duplex construction that is planned in phases kind of west of where the covered bridge is in southeast Beatrice. And the other is a commercial project out on East Scott and US 136. Kind of nice to see there's investment being made, and it continues to be so.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, that's one of the nice things about tax increment financing. It is becoming one of the few tools that we have that we can do to incentivize projects. And we've talked probably over several years that one of the areas that is probably a weakness is housing. And so, to see the duplex, triplex come through is going to be a nice addition. That's a really nice addition out there, and the contractors I know, and I know he's going to do a really good job to get those done. And then, it's always nice to see a commercial property start to develop, which means we're going to have a new business in Beatrice, whatever that might be. I don't know if that's been really determined, but when it does, we'll sure let everybody know. But right now, I know they're moving dirt.
Yeah.
And so, tax increment financing helped with both of those projects.
Developers are anxious to get going. I know the process isn't always very short. It takes a few steps, but they're ready to go, it looks like.
It is. I mean, when you think about it, excuse me, tax increment financing takes, by the time you get the application and get it through, it's
probably a month or two, I'll bet,
almost 2 months when
Yeah.
you think about how you got to hit meetings, and sometimes meetings are, like the council is every other, only twice a month when you do the business part of it, and getting everybody on the committees together to approve it as well. So it takes a little bit of time, but we get through it.
I just said a month or two. Tobias is probably saying, a month or two? What do you mean, 3 or 4?
Could be, yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it's nice to see those operations go forward in those developments. He had one thing at the council meeting on Monday night is a couple wants to take over what used to be the Orange Bowl. I think it was called Family Bowl and Social in the past owner, but the bowling alley on East Court Street want to start operating that again.
Right. That wasn't part of the TIF process, but it's a new business in Beatrice. New old, I don't know how you consider it, but Chris Bell and his wife are opening up the bowling alley. I think they take over in May. They came and during public forum and had the opportunity to share that they were purchasing the bowling alley. They're going to focus on family fun. I think between the bowling alley and then they're bringing in games, so we're going to have a nice place for the families to go. And I'm very thankful that Chris took over the bowling alley, and I believe they're still going to have food from the way it sounded. And so that's an entertainment point that you just hate to lose. And here we have somebody from the community that stepped up and bought it. So we really, really are excited, and we wish Chris Bell the best of luck, and however we can help support that project, we'll certainly be there for him.
Nice to have recreational differences, alternatives for the quality of life and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that's exciting. That's exciting for them. Probably a little scary for them as you go into business. But again, there's 3 examples of at least some really good positive moves as we move forward into the spring.
All right. We'll be back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today to finish up things with Mayor Bob Morgan. I almost said Bob Sargent. Boy, I'm thinking showing my age here. I'll tell you what, I was going back a few years here, but I was trying to remember how many years we've been doing this. Probably 7 or 8 administrations, somewhere in there.
Probably.
Pretty close to it.
Yeah.
I think, of course, some have gone, 2 terms, and so, but that's a topic for another day when my memory might be a little bit better. So we talked about, the commercial and the residential projects that were using tax increment financing. Anything in the works over, let's say the rest of this year that you foresee coming up in terms of larger commercial, industrial prospects that could become reality? Or are there things out there that if things fell just right, there might be something there?
I know that Engage, the economic development arm of the city, is certainly working on a number of projects, and there are a couple of RFPs we've sent, or Engage has sent in, because that's a partnership between local money from business and industry, the city of Beatrice, and Engage County, so it does encompass the whole county. And I know there's a couple of projects that they put in. That's always a tough thing because they're going to take a look at the city as a whole. Probably the biggest hurdle for us is the fact that our unemployment is so low.
Yeah.
Because you always need a pretty good work base, and so they have to widen that workforce base to figure out where they're going to get their folks. But there's a couple of things that they put in on, as you find out in economic development, most of those have funny names, and you really don't know 100% of what they are.
Code names and
code
things like
names
that.
and those type of things, because whatever businesses that are trying to relocate or trying to open up new business, really want to keep it pretty much quiet until they've made their choice. So, it's one of those things. It's a little bit like fishing. You got to make a lot of casts before you get the big bass.
Yeah.
And so they're out there fishing every day.
Yeah. That labor shortage, too, is one of the reasons they've been focusing on childcare availability in spots, because that if you make some progress there, you give dual working households a better chance to go out and work and things
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that does impact. It really, really does. And it's getting to be a bigger impact than what, a lot of us realize now that we've got our kids grown.
Yeah. Any idea on how registration is going for Clean City? That's the large item pickup is coming up, not next week, but I think, the week after that?
The week after that,
Yep.
I think registration's going pretty well. Jason Moore had the opportunity to talk about the streets department, and the streets department are the guys that really do the Clean City pickup. And after he went through his presentation, and they're a pretty hard and diverse working group, they're ready to go. And like everything else, it all now has moved into technology. They'll have the iPad and the truck with them, and they know basically what they're picking up and where.
With a few trucks and a couple of loaders, they cover a lot of ground in 3 days.
Boy, they
during that
really
week.
do.
Yeah, it's you see them out there. If you've ever watched them go from one location to another, they don't waste much time. I mean, they get to the spot and then just keep moving on down the line.
They do.
So,
They do a great job.
Yeah, they do. Arbor Day coming up on the 28th, I believe it is, the observance. And one of the things a mayor gets to do is issue proclamations now and then. And you did that Monday night for that. And you're going to have a ceremony at the Veterans Memorial Park.
Right. Keep Beatrice beautiful. I think has put together a tree planting for a number of years. And so we will be planting a tree at the Veterans Memorial Park and having a ceremony. And, we just continue to add trees. And we have, if I'm not mistaken, and I got to go back, should have looked it up before I came. I want to go back historically. I want to say, because Beatrice is a tree city. It's been nominated and appointed as a tree city by the Arbor Foundation. And I'm thinking it has been nominated and been a tree city for 35 years. And so, when you think about trees, you think about, well, gee, they're nice. But, they do provide shade. They do provide, oxygen. And they do provide, some really economic impacts by beautifying the city. So, it'll be a nice ceremony. I understand, like I said, it's going to be in Veterans Park. Anybody that wants to attend certainly can. And I think, Veterans Park isn't very far from Stoddard, so I believe some of the kids will be making their way down for the ceremony as well, and so that's always fun.
Yeah.
And so it'll be a really nice ceremony, and I think it's at 10 a.m. at Veterans Park.
I think on a tree city, too, you got to have a local board, and you have to have a kind of a plan for how you replace things or take
Right.
care of the stock you have now. So it's not just, hey, you get the designation, then, oh, that's
No,
nice.
that's right.
There's some hitches to it. You have to do
There are some
certain things.
hitches, and there's a process. Yes, it's not as easy as just, okay, we're going to plant a tree to celebrate Arbor Day. No. Yeah.
One of the things Monday night was a Beatrice Plus grant to put up windscreens at the pickleball courts. If anybody lives in Nebraska, you probably need windscreens now and then because it's kind of hard to play the game if you don't at sometimes.
Yeah, okay. And I have yet to get into the pickleball
I haven't either
playing.
yet.
So I don't have probably the knowledge other people have, but I think it's a combination. If those of you don't know, it's a combination between tennis and ping pong, and I think it basically shortens the court.
Yeah.
But it has really been a big boom. I know there's pickle courts at the YMCA that are busy 5 days a week in the mornings, and we're looking at other places, and we put in Chautauqua Park pickleball courts.
Yeah.
And from the people that play pickleball, they came to the Beatrice Plus committee and put a request in for $9,000 maximum to put nets around there so they can play in higher winds. And so, again, it's a group that is developing more and more people, and it's open to the public for whoever wants to join them. And I know the people that are playing pickleball are so receptive to having people come out and watch and play. I think when we were at the Beatrice Plus meeting, I know one individual said, sure, I bring 3 paddles.
Yeah.
I certainly share, because it's the more people we can get in there playing, the better the whole sport is. And it's not just here. I mean, it's across the country. Pickleball has really made a vast impression. So, Beatrice Plus is there to help out those type of things, and that's a good use of the funds.
The great thing about that Chautauqua Park location, too, is that it had been so unused as a tennis court area, because you had the Hannibal courts, which are the kind of the gold standard for the community,
Right.
that it just fit in perfectly to make use of that for that.
It did.
Yeah.
It really did, and we're going to say usage go up in Chautauqua Park.
All right. Bob, thanks again for coming in on our program.
Thank you.